Elio. We waited a long time for this to happen, but now we're finally getting abducted by a new batch of Pixar aliens. It's funny how we got this new fully original animated feature by Pixar, yet for quite some time now, the cartoon community has been frantically running around thinking that the studio will only be making sequels because of how fans place their whole focus on the success of Inside Out 2 and the development of Toy Story 5 and Incredibles 3. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago since they put out an original movie, and they also got 2 more originals after Elio. It's a good lesson that you never know everything that's going on in an animation studio and what projects they have in the works. You know, something that should be common knowledge for the community.
I think you should have that looked at.
But back to Elio, this had quite the travel before its official communication with Earth. It was originally planned to be released in the previous year, just before Inside Out 2, but the production was not the smoothest at the studio. In fact, the idea of the film was created by Pixar veteran Adrian Molina. But after a couple of years, he had to step aside from the movie, mainly to co-direct Coco 2, and left the project in the hands of Turning Red director Domi Shi and the creator of the short Burrow, Madeline Sharafian. I understand that this initially sounds like a red flag, since Pixar does have a history of swapping directors mid-production for one reason or another, and that caused some of those movies to debatably end up as among the studio's weaker films. However, that doesn't mean that we should lose hope on this space adventure, and maybe the kid could win the hearts of more than just his new alien friends. So now that we'll be entering the Communiverse, will this be a must-watch for everyone in the cosmos? Or is this as much of a sham as Elio's title of the Leader of Earth? Let's find out. The story. As this is about aliens in outer space, the big question that the movie is centered around is, are we alone? However, Elio explores this on a deeper emotional level. It's not just related to the universe and if there's life on other planets, but also to find a place where we belong. As the young hero gets his wish to be abducted by aliens, hoping that he could be where he doesn't feel alone. However, his invitation to the Communiverse came with a misunderstanding, as the other aliens believe that he is the leader of Earth. It doesn't help the situation either when he also got there when the warlord Grygon threatens to take the whole place down for not letting him be an ambassador, which puts Elio in a position to settle the situation if he wants to stay at the place where he feels like he belongs.
But I just got here! Perhaps one of us could talk to him. You do it!
I am shy.
I'll do it! You're in great hands! You're crazy!
If you've seen a lot of movies, then you might pick up that this plot already sounds familiar. And I'll say now that yes, it is. This is the typical Little White Lie narrative where the protagonist finds themselves in a new environment and pretend to be something greater than what they actually are, resulting in them to be in charge of resolving the conflict while trying to keep up the lie. It's a formula that barely changes from movie to movie, and Elio is no different. It's honestly the feature's biggest flaw, since the story itself is not the picture's main priority. While it focuses on the other stuff it wants to primarily present, it just leaves the narrative to be on autopilot and let the film go through the familiar tropes to have audiences experience the same ride that other features have redundantly done before.
You might not believe me right now, but this will be good for you.
It also doesn't help when the storytelling can make the movie feel rushed at times. Just when you think you could settle into a scene and get into the mood of the moment, it occasionally jumps straight into the next in an almost whiplash speed where it feels done with it and unexpectedly changes the tone. I get that this is an animated family film and you can't make this too long, but this is one of those films that could have benefited to having more time to establish the scenes to help get audiences feel more emotionally invested in the picture. It can get annoying when you think it's gonna get the scene just right, but then suddenly gives up on it just to move on to the next thing that's happening.
Allow me to adjust your gravity.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Gravity on.
However, even if the story itself is weak, I cannot say the same about the execution. Thanks to the directing, it is able to salvage the most it could in order to make it feel like a fun experience. One part that is innate to this situation is the lighthearted tone. While I'd hesitate to call this a hilarious movie, or even a funny movie, the comedy is all around cute, with none that feel like duds that provide additional charm to the characters and the Communiverse, thus making the feature pleasantly engaging.
Hi, Dad. I'm a bargaining chip.
No, say the other thing.
Oh, help me, Father.
Quiet, you.
What is that unholy sound? Stop!
But the key that makes Elio an endearing picture is the heart. You remember what I've mentioned before regarding how it explores the emotional meaning of the question, are we alone? To flip things around, that's the movie's strongest asset. Sure, there are parts where it doesn't take enough time to make those moments fully effective, but when it does present how Elio feels and his need to belong in a place where he won't be alone, that's when the film is at its best, where the emotions are powerful and is the most engaging to see, not for the kid to stop Grigon and save the aliens, but to break through his loneliness so that he can be with people who can love him, and especially to love himself.
Back home, I didn't fit in.
I thought Earth was the problem, but what if it's me?
Well, I like you, and you seem fine to me.
Safe to say that this is not the studio's best story. It's a rehashed plotline that's been overdone by other movies in the past, and this one doesn't do a lot that's different other than rushing its scenes. However, thanks to its heart and tone led by the directors, it does make up for it by giving importance to the theme of loneliness, turning this big intergalactic adventure into a touching tale of finding a place where you belong. It should be no surprise that the story is saved by Pixar's emotional signature touch. The animation. They've been in space to find love, they've been in space for an epic adventure, and now Pixar's back in space to make some new friends. And that's the best way to describe the look of the animation. It's all very friendly. The style and the designs put a lot of emphasis on a rounded look to make the visuals more inviting to viewers of all ages, from the humans to the aliens to the Communiverse itself, along with a color palette where the brightness and the saturation reflect on Elio's mood of the moment, where the more happy and less lonely he is, the more the colors are vibrant and lighter. It plays a role in the pleasant tone so that once you enter the film and experience its new environments, you get a good first impression that you're about to get into this fun new world with nice characters to meet.
And you're the leader of?
Earth?
Yeah, that's everyone. It's the leader of
And that's another element that the movie is great at. The world building with the Communiverse is both beautiful and highly creative. It is able to capture that otherworldly feel where the technology and the architecture is so advanced that they feel unrecognizable to us in the present. At the same time, it is built as a simplistic utopia that is made to be universally inclusive to all the aliens on board so that it could cater to everyone's needs, but also have that part where you don't immediately comprehend how everything works. It does very well to explore the area from Elio's perspective, where you experience what the Communiverse has to offer, even if he doesn't fully get how some of the things work.
I contain the secrets of the universe. What is the meaning of life?
Who would win in a fight? One gorilla with a baseball bat or 10 chimps?
The gorilla.
On a side note, the score by Rob Simonson adds to that tone of being in this unrecognizably advanced universe, along with enhancing the emotions. It reminds me of the music you'd hear in Tomorrowland at the Disney parks, with that sense of being in a fun-filled fictional future that makes space exploration feel like an enjoyable adventure. It does the job to match what the kid hopes for when meeting aliens, and reflect how his self-esteem is doing. I can also say the same about other areas with their different effects, like Grigon's ship and Elio's life on Earth. The former has a more rigid look with sharp corners that highlight the ruthlessness of the character, being all about destruction and tyranny, while the latter is presented as something that's more familiar to the viewer, but also plainly out of place for a character like Elio to establish that he doesn't initially fit in his normal environment.
Your life isn't up there, Elio. You need to make friends.
I just want to belong somewhere.
As for the aliens, they're much like the Communiverse, where they are individually simple in their designs, but their impressiveness comes from the wide diversity of different life forms that are on board, each with their own style of movements, textures, colors, abilities, and ways of communicating. They all sell the idea of how the Communiverse is a central hub of the cosmos where all living beings come together. And for the humans, yes, they have that recognizable bean head, but it works well to fit in with the whole round aesthetic of the feature, where even if he's literally out of this world, he wouldn't look too out of place when hanging out with the aliens, along with allowing the characters like Elio to be bigger with their expressions, which is vital for the picture to highlight its emotional core.
Which one of these is you?
I don't know, but I think that one is you.
At the same time, there are some surprises that you wouldn't expect that the film goes with its direction, and the visuals know how to execute them well. This is especially the case with the climax. Without spoiling anything, it can get intense with what is at stake and include a fast pace by highlighting the danger of flying around in space. So even if this is more of an emotionally driven film, there can be times when it could get into some action. Sure, there have been many movies that go to space and encounter a variety of aliens, but the studio's team was able to find a way to create their own kinds to make this intergalactic adventure feel fresh and exciting to explore. No matter where they go, you'll always find something amazing to see with Pixar's animation. The characters. When a movie develops a powerful emotional core, a big part of it is thanks to the strong characters who are capable of making a connection with the viewer. With the main cast, they each have their own quirks and insecurities that have their unique way of making their problems feel relatable on a more personal level. Also, the voice acting in general is one of the feature's stronger elements, where they play a significant role in making their personalities feel big and emphasizing their charismatic traits. Rather they be the kids like Jonas Kibrib and Remy Edgerly, or veteran actors like Zoe Saldana and Shirley Henderson, the movie has a great cast who really gave it their all to ensure that their performances enhance both their roles and the feature itself.
Elio! Elio?
Elio.
Bum 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 bum.
Hello? Hello?
And as we look upon who they play, let's begin with the boy who was abducted, Elio. The big reason why he's so obsessed with aliens and leaving Earth is because of his loneliness. The only people he truly bonded with in his life were his parents, but since they passed away when he was very young, he has a hard time connecting with others, even feeling like his interests make him unique to a fault. This all results in Elio to have low self-esteem. And going back to the big reason why he's so fascinated with aliens and the idea of being abducted, they come from the need of wanting to feel like he belongs somewhere, even if it's not on his home planet. Elio pretty much embodies the question of, are we alone? Both in terms of the curiosity of what's out there in the universe, and the internal need of wanting to be in a place where we could feel accepted by people who understand us. And to be very honest, I really did connect with Elio with how his hyperfixation can simultaneously feel like a blessing and a curse. I'll admit that Pixar really got me with that one.
I'm trying to get abducted. By aliens. There's signs I'm supposed to be up there. This mole is the exact shape of the Orion Nebula.
On that note, the only person he has left to raise him is his aunt Olga, a military major who struggles with taking care of him and managing her job. I'll say now that she is a great character with her own arc of trying to find a way to show affection to her nephew, even if she doesn't fully understand him. The only problem is that I feel like there might be some scenes missing related to her side plot while Elio is in the Communiverse. There is clearly a good idea there, but it wasn't fully developed in the final film, where it can abruptly skip straight to knowing that something's wrong and that Elio might no longer be on Earth.
I've got one last meeting, so I need you to sit here and not move or speak or injure yourself for 10 minutes.
Moving on to the aliens, the majority of their roles aren't really significant other than being the inviting ambassadors at the Communiverse. The only way they stand out is through their abilities like Questa's mind reading, and Ooh being a liquid supercomputer supplying what Elio needs to adapt to his new alien surroundings.
Testing. Can you understand me now?
Yes.
But then you have Lord Grygon, the villain whose ideologies are the opposite of the ambassadors, where he's all about gaining power and destroying his enemies through brute force. Over the years, Brad Garrett voiced a bunch of memorable Pixar characters, but Grygon is honestly one of my favorites. His low booming voice fits perfectly for a threatening role like this, and he really plays up his tyrannical nature to present how much he loves being a warlord.
My son, are you prepared to become the greatest war machine in the universe?
I don't know.
And then there's his son, Glorden. Much like Elio, Glorden is a kid who mostly feels alone and unheard. He barely gets much attention from his parents, and he doesn't share his father's vision of wanting to carry the tradition of being a tyrant. In a way, he also feels like an outcast, which makes him the perfect companion for Elio as they form a special bond where they can be free to be themselves and enjoy whatever's around them without feeling judged.
I've never been a bargaining chip before. I've been a liability, a disappointment. I've also been an enigma, a problem, a headache. Oops.
The most that I could criticize with some of the cast is that I wish there was more time to spend with them so that an emotional connection with the audience could be truly formed. However, that's more of an issue with how the story is structured than with the people and the aliens, because the characters have what it takes to both power the movie's heart and deliver the commentary about loneliness. The funny thing about being unique like Elio is that while it can make you feel alone, you forget that most people see that as a great attribute. Much like the titular character, it can be hard to handle at times with how it can act strange, but over time, its charm shines through to show that it has a lot of heart. Elio is a touching animated feature that takes the concept of the question, "Are we alone?" and evolve it into an emotional adventure that Pixar knows how to deliver best. I'll admit that it's not among the studio's masterpieces, especially with its cliched story that sometimes doesn't take time to make the most out of its cast, but it is still a very well-crafted picture with heartfelt directing that put a lot of effort onto the emotional core, a charming tone from beginning to end, beautifully fun animation, great voice acting, and captivating characters who can carry the powerful message of loneliness. While this may not be among Pixar's greatest movies, that doesn't change how this is still worth checking out. I recommend seeing this if you want a fun and emotional family film, or especially if you're like Elio and have a fascination with space and aliens, then this could turn out to be a new favorite for you. And if you had a good time with this review, then press that like button and subscribe to my channel. You can also support me on my Patreon, where you can become an ambassador of my own Communiverse. It's unfortunately rare in this age of cinema when an original animated feature made for the big screen comes along. But when they do, we should make the most to enjoy them while we can. And in the case of Elio, let's make sure that it doesn't feel alone.
I need my space inhaler.